Hello, Marjan or Marjan. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, um, but I just wanted to get back to you. And since you sent me a video of what you're trying to do with your game, I thought I would create a video to show you what I had worked out. I understand that you don't have internet, so it's hard for you to download stuff. So maybe this video will be a little bit easier for you to follow and see what I'm doing. See if this is any help to you. Let's see here. I'm going to open up Godot here. First, I'll just talk a little bit about my original Frogs and Flies game that we were discussing. I'll let that open up here real quick. Alright, we'll just go ahead and launch the game now. I'll just go in here for now. Little update, by the way. Now my game has a two-player mode. If you're on the computer, you can use two different controllers to control the frogs. But also, if you have a friend and both you want to play like on a tablet at the same time, I created on-screen controls. There's the tongue button and there's the jump button for player 1, player 2 buttons on the other side of the screen. Okay, so anyway, notice how, like, if a fly spawns from one side of the screen, like from the right side, he'll move mostly to the left, and then whenever he does change direction, move backward, he only moves a little bit to the right, and then mostly back to the right, or I'm sorry, back to the left again. Basically, all that I've done with these guys is I've just set a timer node to alter his horizontal course every so many seconds and alter his vertical course every so many seconds. Let's see, if we look at the fly's script, you can see, actually let me just pull up one of the flies real quick just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so here he is. So you see I have two horizontal timers and two vertical timers. I probably could have done this better. I probably could have combined some codes in the different timers and just used some conditions in one timer. But as I was working it out, it was just easier for me to have one horizontal timer that handles his movement to the right, a second horizontal timer that handles its movement to the left. See, negative values, positive values, right? And then the same thing for my vertical timers. But basically, just all that happens is the timer runs for like 3 seconds. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Oops, didn't mean to change that. And when it times out, as long as the player isn't dead, it's going to set the motion.x to a random range of numbers between 20 and 80. So a speed of 20 and 80 to the right, and then it's going to reset, it's going to set a new wait time for the second timer, and that wait time itself is even going to be a random number between 3 to 10 seconds. So sometime within 3 to 10 seconds, the second timer will eventually time out and then alter the x movement in a negative value. Send it into minus 30 or minus 60. My basic physics up here, just motion is equal to move and slide with the motion variable and a vector 2 dot up. And the motion variable, by the way, you set that to vector 2 dot 0 or whatever you want along those lines. My ready function will launch the horizontal and vertical movement functions, which basically just launch the timers. I could have just launched the timers here and had them been self-sufficient, just self-looping. I didn't necessarily need to do a function for those, I don't think. Maybe I could. It's getting late. My brain's getting a little bit fuzzy. No, I probably wouldn't have needed to do that because it would have just created its own little timeout function when I set these signals. Um, but anyway, yeah, so that's all that we have here to create that random motion. So it's randomly at random different times, random wait times, launching another timer, which then chooses a random new speed for the fly, and then sets another random time for that timer to restart, for that first timer to restart, and then do it all over again in a constant cycle. But notice that for the for the fly one, for this fly number one here, in my main gameplay screens, fly 1 generally is spawned from the left side of the screen, and then I have a fly 2 that's the same exact actor but faces to the left and is spawned usually from the right hand side and flies mostly from right to left. Um, Let me go back to my script here for the, yeah, here it is. So notice that for the fly 1 who generally flies from left to right, notice even though the movements are pretty random, they lean a little bit more heavily towards moving right. It has a faster top speed for moving right, 20 to 80 to the right versus 30 to 60 moving to the left. But not only that, I have the fly continue on its right trajectory for a longer range of seconds, from 3 to 10 seconds, where whenever it moves back to the left, these negative values, it only does it for 1 to 2 seconds. That creates like this fly is sort of meandering to the right. It might go back a little bit, but then it goes forward even more. So like 2 steps ahead, 1 step back, basically. Okay, the vertical movement, I basically just have those go relatively the same. 50 and 10, 50 and 10, 1 to 5 seconds on each one, because I don't want it to get too far ahead, up or down. It's mainly left to right or right to left, depending on which actor it is. And that's pretty much it. That's how I establish my random movement in my game, my main game. But let's take a look at a different project that I started just to experiment. Here it is, fly movement experiment. Just to experiment with moving the flies around a little bit differently, especially working towards getting the flies to move in a circle, a circular motion. So the first one that I worked out, let me find it here. I don't know why I renamed it World 2. But this was the first guy that I worked out. This is a little bit of a clumsy sort of way to do this, but it does kind of work. So basically, in my world here, I have this guy, this center node. I made it a kinematic body 2D so that I can move it around with move and slide. But basically, it's just a node. It doesn't even have a sprite. Well, it does have a sprite attached to it right here. But normally I keep that sprite hidden, or just don't even have a, don't even bother to put a texture on it. Just keep it invisible. Because really, the fly, I took one of my flies from the other game, and I basically just attached it to this center node as one of the center's children. It's a child of the center node. So whatever I do movement-wise on the center node, like see here, this is the center node, here's the fly, offset a little bit to the side from it. So whatever I do to the center node, movement-wise, the fly is going to follow. So if I move the center node over here, the fly follows at an offset, and so on and so forth. Okay? So what happens then if, I'll just turn this back on so you can see what the center node is doing. What happens if I tell the center node to rotate? Well, guess what? center node rotates, and the fly rotates with it. So whenever I hide the center node sprite, it just looks like that fly is just flying around in a bit of a circle. Okay. Also, I have the circle moving, and I have that center sprite slowly meandering its way over to the right. Now you could randomize that movement so it moves all over the place with this fly constantly circling it. Also notice, let me restart it real quick, that the fly is changing how fast it's circling around, and it's also changing how far of an offset it has. So it makes its circle bigger or smaller. Kind of randomizes a little bit. I exported some variables that change the speed, the curve speed. I could speed it up a little bit, make it go real fast, right? I can change the curve size, but when I do, it gets a little bit wonky and does some weird stuff. So you might not want to mess with it too much, at least not as an exported variable. You know, just code everything that you want it to do. So let's see if what did I have that at? Like 40, I think it was. Actually, can I just undo? No, it's not going to let me undo. Yeah, I had it at 50. Okay, here we go. So let's take a look at the code real quick. Now the center, I attached a simple script to it just to get it moving. You know, I gave it a motion variable, set it to vector2. I gave it a cap speed, meaning that I'm not going to let it go any further than whatever this cap speed number is. Physics process, we set motion.x, you know, the speed variable here, to, well, we're going to add 10 to it times delta, and I just set this condition here that if motion x ever gets bigger than cap speed, which is up here, we set it at 15, then we're going to just set the motion equal to that same number. So that way, anytime as it keeps adding, you know, by delta, it keeps adding 10 and 10, you know, 10, the number 10 to the motion.x, it's eventually going to overshoot 15. It's going to get bigger than 15. So when it does, we're going to keep resetting it back to 15. So that way, you know, it'll get going. You know, if I wanted to, I could do this like a little bit more gradually, like start it out at 3, right? And so it'll start off a little bit slower and then gradually speed up to 15. Right? If you want to see a more pronounced effect, maybe what if I do like a bigger number? Like, oops, maybe not that big. Like, say 50, right? And then he'll speed up. And well, he's speeding up really slow. I don't know. Eventually, I get given enough time, he'll get so fast that it'll be like 50. Yeah, there he goes. There he goes. Now he's getting nice and quick. And then he'll level off and not go any faster than 50. I know that's not really related to what you're trying to accomplish here. It's just something that I did. We'll just, actually, let me just undo all that. I liked it at that nice slow creeping speed, so we'll just keep it at that. Alright, so, and then you gotta do this motion is equal to move and slide. You gotta apply the whole move and slide method or whatever to it, otherwise it doesn't usually work. So, but now let's take a look at how I coded the rotation and the variables of the rotation. So, oh, where is it? Is it here? Wait. Oh, there we go. I just was on the wrong script. Okay, here we go. So I set my curve speed. That's going to tell it how fast to rotate as a variable, and then my curve size just tells is going to set, oops, how big of an offset the fly node has from the center of the center node. So right now it's set to, what is it, like 50? Yeah, 50. Okay, 50 pixels. You can make that any number you want, right? So anyway, in our ready function, we're going to set the position of the fly to a certain place on the canvas there. And then we're going to also tell our timer to start. The physics process is what makes it move, right? It's going to tell the center node to rotate. So center, you get node with the $, center dot rotation, and we're going to add to that rotation speed a plus equals, and then the curve speed value, but you can just say curve speed is just the variable, times delta. Just like in the other script, how to make it move, we said plus equals 10 times delta. So same deal here, except instead of motion.x, it's rotation that's getting altered now by the number. And then let's see here, and then also center, get the fly node with this center slash fly, and we're gonna alter its x position to curve size, right? Just this number here. So I'm making it be 20, offset 20 from itself, basically. Okay, so the fly is offset. I'm sorry, did I say 20? I meant to say 50. 50 right here, because that's curve size. I got my curve speed and my curve size mixed up. So it'll be 50 pixels away from the center of this node that it belongs to. And then the timer function is where it gets interesting. Basically, when the timer, which is on a really small number, like 0.1, every time it times out, it's going to check to see if the distance, the size of the offset from center to fly, if it's, as long as it's no bigger than 200, as long as it's less than 200, it's going to keep adding and making that curve size bigger, and then it's going to keep restarting the timer, just keep doing it over and over and over and over until we finally are equal to or bigger than 200. And once we hit that point, we're going to stop restarting timer 1, and we're going to instead start timer 2. Timer 2 also has a small number over here, and this one says as long as the curve size is less than 20, right? I decided to make it not get any closer than 20 pixels to the center. It's going to keep subtracting from that curve size, making it the offset smaller and smaller, closer and closer. And then it's going to keep restarting the timer and doing it again as long as it's less than 20. As soon as as soon as the curve size becomes, I don't know why I said 50. Let's make it 20. As soon as the curve size becomes less than 20, or equal to 20, less than or equal to 20, then guess what? We go back now to timer 1, and then we do it all over again, adding and then taking away. Now, obviously we could randomize this number. We could even randomize the amount of time that it waits before it changes that number. Right? But the idea was I did a small number on the timer and small increments because I wanted it to not just jump real quick, from the center all the way over here. I wanted it to gradually increase a few pixels at a time or decrease a few pixels at a time to give it that nice, smooth, round kind of motion. Okay? And it kind of works. It doesn't look too bad. You can speed up and slow down. You can increase or decrease. And when you make that sprite in the middle invisible, just looks like we have a fly just kind of buzzing around in a randomish kind of circle. It kind of works. Looks nice, I think. However, I don't really care for this method. I think rotating that center node is just kind of, it's, I don't know, feels like it's cheating because the fly is not really moving on its own. It's just attached to something that happens to be spinning. And it makes the fly go upside down and topsy-turvy. So, I don't know. I mean, it looks okay, I guess. So here's where we get into the other way that I created this random circular motion. Here I just created a basic fly. I didn't even put it in a world scene or anything. Just moving the fly in its own scene here. Animation player to get its buzz animation. Collision. I guess we don't need all that. But I do have a horizontal timer and a vertical timer. You know, to alter his horizontal speed and his vertical speed. Basically, all that we're doing here is we're getting this fly to move right and then left, right and then left, but in a way that he gradually speeds up, gradually slows down, gradually speeds up, gradually slows down. And then he's going to do the same thing up and down at the same time he's doing it left and right. And when you put the timing of the up and down motion and the timing of the left and right motion together just right, it creates nice circular patterns. Part of it too is offsetting the time when the vertical gets altered, like with the kind of in between the timing of when the horizontal gets altered. Like, because if you just have them change the same all the time, starting at the same time, all that'll happen is he'll just move diagonally back and forth, but he won't really circle. So basically, here's how I did it. Oh, well, let me play it for you first, just so you can see the effect. There he goes, moving down, now to the left, as he's moving up now, moving back to the right, and there he starts to move down. So we get a nice, gradual, smooth kind of rotation with him there. I think that looks pretty nice. Obviously, we can change the speeds. We can make them go round and round faster and faster. If you play around with, let me see, do I have... Yeah, here we go. We could play around with the speeds because I exported them. Right? I could make the horizontal speed. Well, let's go 140. I don't know. Make the horizontal speed a little bit faster than the vertical speed. Well, the only problem, I think that messes with the function that I had. So the timer that I have gradually changing this, because I think when you change an export variable, I don't know, I'm not sure, but it is rather glitchy. I mean, it's okay when I start it from scratch now, right? So you see now we have a different kind of flight pattern here with the H speed a little bit bigger, so we have more of like an oblong kind of rotation. Okay, let me just reset it back. See, when you set it in mid-flight, it does some weird things to the flight pattern that I created. So, if that's what you want it to do, that's fine, but, and I suppose if you randomize some of the numbers here, you could get some pretty interesting, unintentional kinds of flight patterns. But anyway, let's take a look at the script. So, basic physics process, we have our motion variable, and we're setting it to, I instead of using numbers, I actually made these export variables for its horizontal speed and its vertical speed. They're right now, by default, set to 100. We have our motion set to vector 2. So I don't have to keep using the $sign to call up my timers. I just created a variable called H time and V time for horizontal timer, vertical timer. And I did a boolean for moving left and right. I just called it moving right. And I got it a little bit backwards, but it still does its job. And moving up and down. I just called it moving down. So when it's moving down, it's true. When it's moving up, it's false. I didn't end up using these horizontal and vertical direction variables. I tried it in some other ways that just sucked, that were not good at all. So they're not really being used right now. I just kept them in case I decided to do something with them. At the ready function, we're going to start the horizontal timer. We're going to wait 2 seconds before starting the vertical timer. So that way they don't both start at the same time, but this one starts just a little bit later than this one. And that plays an important role in when, like if it's horizontally moving, when you start the vertical movement is going to sort of determine what your circle looks like. Okay. Basic physics process. We're just setting the motion.x to horizontal speed variable and motion y to the vertical speed variable. If the the horizontal motion gets, if it gets bigger than 0, we're going to flip the horizontal sprite. We're going to horizontally flip the sprite, because by default it's facing to the left. So when the guy is moving to the right, we want to flip it so the fly is facing right. Same thing with the flip V. If he's moving down, means he'll have a motion.y that's greater than 0. He'll be fine, but when he's moving less than 0, means he's going up. We're going to flip him upside down so he's going up. And you can see that, how as he moves, see how his face is kind of constantly, his body is kind of pointed in the direction that he's flying in for the most part. So that's how I established that. Let me make sure I could come back here. And then, of course, establish our move and slide, however you like to do your vector 2s or whatever you're using. You've probably seen that I've done this a little bit differently in this project than I did in other projects. Okay, so here's where the magic happens. The timers. I got a little bit better using the timer by the time I created this node here. Instead of using like a bunch of different timers or making the timers call these elaborate functions, here I just did everything I needed to do for my horizontal motion in one timer. I didn't need a separate timer for going to the left. So basically, we just check to see, is the speed both greater than minus 100? Minus 100 would mean like the fly is traveling at the fastest speed it's going to travel to the left. As long as the speed is greater than that, and my moving, I probably should have called this moving left, but that's okay. As long as this boolean here equals true, then the timer, every time it times out at a very, very, very small number, every time it's going to subtract the h speed, it's going to add a negative value to it. It's going to make it closer to this top left speed by 1. Okay? And then it's going to restart itself. Is this true? Yes. Subtract 1, restart. Subtract 1, restart. Subtract 1, restart. Etc., etc., etc. Until eventually this isn't true anymore. This one will still be true. See, the next line says if h speed is equal to, not less than anymore, but, I'm sorry, greater than anymore, but equal to negative 100. But this same variable that we had up here is also still true. We're just going to change that to false and then restart the function again, restart the timer again. But next time it's going to check, and this time it'll still be equal to 100. However, it won't be true anymore. So it's equal to, so basically what's going to happen now is, now that this variable is changed, that means that this line now will start to be able to satisfy all the conditions. Because it's going to check if moving right is false. Well, yeah, it is, because we just changed it to false here. Is h speed less than 100? Well, yes, it is, because last time we checked, it was equal to negative 100. Negative 100 is less than 100. So both of these now are true. So now I can start doing this stuff. The reason why I didn't do it up here was because, while, yeah, it was at negative 100, less than 100, this wasn't true yet. I mean, this wasn't false yet. But now, so I had to make it false. So now these are both good. Now I can proceed with this. Okay, we're going to add one now to our horizontal speed and restart. Add, restart, add, restart. And it's going to keep doing that as long as we're less than 100. But as soon as we hit 100, but also checks that the Boolean is still false, then we're going to just go ahead and set this to true and then restart the timer. So once that happens, we're equal to 100, and now this is true. What that means is, if it's equal to 100, that also means that it's greater than negative 100, just like we had down here. But now the Boolean is back to true. And so now we can start firing this again. And so the whole thing keeps going in a cycle over and over and over, gradually increasing the speed till it gets faster, and then gradually slowing down. Gradually increasing speed this way, then gradually slowing down. By one increment every 1,000th of a second. That's how I get that more gradual, smooth motion, instead of just being jerk, stop, jerk, stop, jerk, stop. Okay? And the reason I can't do this stuff down here is because once we hit 100, it can't do it yet with this Boolean, right? We need that Boolean to tell us not to do it yet, because while it was still increasing this number, that means that eventually this would have been true. And so now it would have had conflicting orders. Do I add or do I take away? Which one do I do? That's why we need the Boolean, so it knows, oh, okay, we're not here right now, we're down here right now. Yeah, we're greater than negative 100, but we're adding because this is still false. It's when we're greater than 100 and this is true that we're going to subtract instead. Right? So that's why it's so useful to sometimes have your conditions use an AND, to have two different conditions to be able to switch up between doing different tasks. So that's what we have. Now basically this vertical timer down here does exactly the same thing that we did up here. Okay. Now, if you wanted to change your shapes a little bit, you could change the maximum and minimum numbers of your speeds here, so that it'll only get up to like a slower speed, or maybe get up to a really super fast speed. Okay, you can change your timer even. Make the timer a little bit slower, or make the timer a little bit faster. This setup here is beautiful because you have a lot of controls that you can play around with and experiment and come up with whatever kind of motion you want with this. I'm sure there are probably better ways to do this, like using curve 2D function, but to be honest, I tried reading the documents on that and it's so confusing. I haven't the slightest idea how to use curve 2D. I'm gonna have to do some more research on that, find some video tutorials or something. There might be some other functions I don't even know about yet that are perfectly designed for creating circular motion. So this is just my own little creative way of making it work. And it works. Oops, I accidentally hit the wrong button there. Let me exit that out. Let's see here. Yep, here it comes. Yep, so there it is. It works. Works just fine. Let's see these variables over here, h speed and v speed. Right? So let's see, what if I And this is why the exported variable maybe is problematic sometimes, because even if I change this number over here, that might change the initial speed and trajectory of the x and y values, but eventually this code in the timer is going to start catching up and altering it back to within the parameters that I've set up. So really, I guess if I wanted to, I could make this number its own variable. Make and maybe export that variable. Then maybe that would give you a little better control over what happens. Also, when we add or subtract to the v speed or h speed, we could even do this as a random range, right? Or we could even, each time we restart the timer, we could also, like before we restart the timer, we could add like h time dot wait time equals random range between 0.001 and say 0.01. And then that, and if you randomized it each time you restart the timer, that could have some neat effects too. It's hard to say. You just got to play with it and see, what you like. See what causes the results that are pleasing to satisfy what you're trying to do. Let's see. Maybe if I change these to like a larger number, for example. So the horizontal speed is bigger, but the vertical speed is smaller. So it's going to go left and right a lot faster, a lot bigger circle left and right. Ooh, maybe that's too big. We don't want it so big that it flies off the screen. Here, let's undo all that. Maybe we'll make the vertical speed smaller. How about that? How about 40? So a single variable would be better because I could change those all at once. Or maybe not. Maybe you want to have it be bigger going in one direction, but smaller going in this direction. And then he would gradually work his way off the screen, kind of like in my original game. Let's see, so we have a smaller vertical, but a bigger horizontal. Oh, see, that kind of created a little bit of a figure 8 pattern there. Interesting. Kinda. Sort of. Yeah, so I mean, you can really tweak this and try different things. Maybe the offset of the timer caused that too. What if I come back up here and this little yield that I put in to hold off the timer from starting, what if I comment that out real quick so that it starts them both at the same time with those different vertical and horizontal numbers? Now what would that do? Oh, whoa, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, falling kind of into that figure 8 pattern, but like a really, really, really skinny figure 8. I'm not sure if I like that so much. So many ways that you could go about it, What if I make it even smaller? What if I make it like 1/5? What would happen? What would happen? Let's see what would happen. Okay, interesting. Oh, 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 I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I don't care for that as much. Yeah, I don't know. for now. But anyway, so you see the basic idea, and this is how we can tweak this and try different things. Um, or just maybe make all of the... Oops. Oh, here, let's do this. Control R brings up the replace thing, so we're just going to replace 100 with, I don't know, 60. Okay, replace. Started out at, oh, maybe that was part of the problem too, that I started it out at 100. And yet it was checking for a different number when I changed it down here. If I had changed it up here also, it probably would have worked a little bit better. So now we have a little bit smaller circle. Well, no, that's more of a diagonal motion. I don't think I like that quite as much. Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's the basic idea. You can play with this and try different things. But I mean, it's going to be a lot of trial and error. This might not be the best method for doing it, but hopefully it'll work for you, and you'll be able to get the results that you want with a little bit of patience. Let's try it just for grins. Let's try what I was doing earlier. Let's try it again. Let's say let's make it half. We'll say 50. 50. And now this time let's also change it up top too. 50. You know what? I don't think I want to export these guys right now. So let's just go ahead and just make it make it a regular variable for now, just to be safe. Let's see. So we have half the vertical speed, double the horizontal speed. Okay. Oh, it still does that weird shift at the bottom. I don't care for that so much. Well, back to the drawing board on that. But I know that what I originally had definitely works. So, oops. That's all right. Let's just leave it for now. Okay. Let me just get rid of this print. I don't need that anymore. That was just for testing. Alright, so there you go. One last look at the code for you, just to help you out there. Here's all this, all the variables, ready function, physics process, and then the horizontal timer and the vertical timer. And it took a lot of trial and error to find the right amount of seconds to do. And you can alter this too. Like if I make the vertical timer be like, I don't know, 0.005. Maybe that's a better way to change the shape of your yeah, that does seem a little bit better. So now I was able to make it taller and skinnier by changing the by making this timer cycle a little bit faster. Actually, yeah, this one goes faster. I'll set it back again to 0.001, and if I do that at a certain point where I'm interrupting the path of the fly, it can create some interesting effects. And then let's say if I go over here, 007. Now we should have a nice wide circle. Yeah, changing the timers, I think, has a much better effect than changing the speed variables, the parameters of your horizontal and vertical speeds. I think this will be the way to go to create whatever results you want to have there. Let's see, what if I do 0.01? What if I make that a lot faster? Or slower, I should say. Wait, my brain, it's late. I'm a little bit sleepy. I'm getting my brain processes backwards. If it cycles every 100th of a second, that's slower. Yeah, okay. So yeah, now we have a little bit of a skinnier circle, right? 0.1. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, what happened there? Well, wait, let's just do this. Let's just reset them both. Let's put them both at 0.1. Now let's run it and see what happens. I think it'll speed up and slow down everything too slowly. Too slowly. So it lets the fly move and buzz off the screen before it changes it enough to turn it around. That's the problem. So if you did a slower timer, in your code you'll probably also need to make these negatives and positives bigger numbers also. Let's see. Yeah, that kind of works. Well, wait, actually, you know what? Come to think of it, if the timer is slower, then just make your maximum and minimum H and V speeds smaller so it doesn't have as far to go to reach the extremes. That might also work. So like if I say, I'll go back to doing 0.1, like we said, 0.1, but we're going to take it to, oops, we're going to replace all the hundreds with, I don't know, 20. Let's try that. Also these ones up here. Okay, I think that got them all. Let's see how that works. Yeah, so a little bit of a smaller circle now. Interesting. Okay. Okay, yeah, that works. That works. And then if I change the ones to, I don't know, threes, I'm not worried about those because I don't even use those. Okay. So now we're changing it faster. What would happen? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, there's a mistake in there somewhere. Did I miss one? Yeah, I don't know. Alright, I'm just going to put these back to where I had them before. Okay, and I remember when I deleted that print. that's where I was. Okay. So, anyway, hope this was useful. Sorry if this video got too long. Hopefully this will be helpful for you, and you'll be able to take this clumsy bit of code that I put together and make something awesome out of it. Not sure what happened here, or what the error is. It's probably nothing. Sometimes it glitches and does weird errors. Okay, my friend, I think that's just about it. If you have any questions for me, shoot me a message. Let me know how this works for you. If you like this method, if you think this will be good. If you come out with a better, more streamlined way of doing all this, I would love to hear about it. All right, my friend, have a blessed night, and we'll talk to you soon.